Hi everybody, welcome back to Sunshine Soap and Candle Company. Today I am bringing to you a fall-inspired melt and pour soap project. Last year around this time I shared with you a cranberry melt and pour layered project that you guys all really liked, and I gave you some different wrapping options at the end of the video, and this one's going to be a little similar in that way. I'm going to be giving you some different wrapping options so you can gift it or present them nicely at a craft fair. And this soap recipe is going to be different, however, this year. We're going to be using a gingered peach fragrance oil, and we're going to be using some really skin-loving ingredients like colloidal oatmeal and buttermilk powder. In this video today, I'm going to be giving you a full step-by-step tutorial of how to make this beautiful melt and pour project. And I'm also going to be including the full written recipe with percentages in the description box for you, so you can replicate this if you want. And for my patrons this week, I'm going to be writing up a full tutorial with recipe and a nice neat PDF. And that will be available on my Patreon campaign for a $5 pledge. There's so much to take advantage of on my Patreon campaign, and I'll go ahead and put the link in the description box if you're interested in checking it out. You can access all of the recipes I've ever published for just a small $5 pledge, and there's so many other things to take advantage of over there, like live monthly classes or exclusive club benefits, as well as reward code coupons to some of my favorite suppliers. All right, let's make some melt and pour soap. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and get our melt and pour soap base ready to go. So this year I'm going to be using the Crystal Soap Base by Stevenson, and this is something you can pick up at Brambleberry. It's the Stevenson brand Crystal Melt and Pour Base. It's got a really beautiful lather. It layers great, and I'm really liking the really clear, crystal clear base. It takes color really well. So I have become a fan of this soap base probably fairly recently. So what we're going to do is go ahead and we are going to be cutting up 80 ounces, which equates to 5 pounds of soap. And so we're going to be dividing that in half. We're going to be putting 40 ounces into one pour pitcher, and then another 40 ounces into another pour pitcher. So you just can take a sharp knife, or you can take some sort of soap cutter. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my scale. And we're just going to start chopping up little chunks. Okay. Into this container, we're just going to weigh out half of what we need for this recipe, which is 40 ounces. Okay, so we have our 80 ounces of soap cut up and evenly distributed between these two pour pitchers. So I'm going to go ahead and set these aside, and the next thing we're going to do is get our additives ready to go. So we are going to be using some buttermilk powder. This is a little bit left over that I have in a plastic bag, although I did pick it up from Wholesale Supplies Plus. So milk is going to be a great thing to add to this melt and pour project because it has alpha hydroxy acids, which helps with cell turnover and it helps with a youthful glow, and it's also great for sensitive skin. So we're going to be putting in some buttermilk powder, and I'm using the buttermilk powder at 1% of 40 ounces. So we're going to be adding in 0.4 ounces of buttermilk powder. And I've come up with that amount because 1% of additives in a melt and pour base is really all that you need. And it doesn't take away from the lather. Anything you add to soap can take away from lather. So you have to be careful about how much you actually put into your soap base so that it doesn't affect your lather too much. So here's 0.4 of our buttermilk powder, and then the next thing we're going to do is weigh off 1% of 40 ounces of colloidal oatmeal. Now we're using colloidal oats because they're very calming to the skin. They're great for sensitive skin. It's a really nice thing to add to any soap. and an easy thing to add into your melt and pour projects to give it that nice label appeal. I'm just going to go ahead and weigh off our 0.4 ounces. Okay. So these can be a bit tricky to add into your melt and pour soap base. So what we're going to do is we're going to dissolve them first in just a little bit of purified water. These are both water-soluble products. So we're just going to go ahead and add a little bit of water in here, and your soap base will be able to handle the little bit of added water that we're using to dissolve this. So we're just going to go ahead and all I'm doing, I'm not even weighing it out, I'm just eyeballing how much water. So all I'm doing is I'm just pouring the purified water enough that it covers the oats and the milk, and then just giving it a good stir so we can get it dispersed. You can put this into a little bit of melt and pour soap, dissolve it, and then pour it into the rest of your batter. I just find that a little bit more of a tricky way to get it evenly distributed, and you're more likely to get chunks in your soap. And actually your melt and pour soap can take a little bit of water. So this is just a very easy way to incorporate these types of additives. And then the buttermilk side, we're going to go ahead and also add in a little bit of titanium dioxide. And then here's a little trick for you here as well. The titanium dioxide, if you ever buy white melt and pour soap base, all they've done is add a little bit of titanium dioxide to it to make it white. And it always is a little bit more expensive than the clear melt and pour soap bases. So one way you can save a little bit of money is just take your clear soap base and add some titanium dioxide, and then you have a white melt and pour soap. So I'm going to go ahead, I've added the titanium dioxide into the buttermilk and the water because this titanium dioxide is water soluble, and then this will make a nice white color in half of the soap. Okay. And then I'm going to leave this colloidal oatmeal aside. We're going to be adding the color on this half directly to the soap. So then the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and prep my fragrance. So the reason I decided to make this a melt and pour soap project is because I really wanted to use this particular fragrance in soap, but reading all the soap notes on Nature's Garden regarding this fragrance, it doesn't behave well in cold processed soap. So I decided to make it a melt and pour project. So this is called Gingered Peach. It's a really beautiful fall themed fragrance. It's really nice. It's kind of got those warm fall vibes going on, but it also has kind of a sweet candy top note to it. Really nice. So all I'm going to do is weigh out half of what I'm using for this recipe because we're going to be doing the first half first, and I just want to make sure I have everything weighed off properly. So we're going to go ahead and pour off, we're using 1 ounce of gingered peach to the 40 ounces, which is half of the recipe. And then we're just going to go ahead and set this aside. Okay, now that all of our additives are prepped and ready to go, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and start melting down half of this soap. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to put this whole amount, 1 pitcher, into the microwave, and I'm going to slowly melt it down for 1 minute to 30-second bursts until it gets all the way melted down, being really careful not to heat this soap up too much. We don't want to scorch the soap, so it's important in between bursts to take it out and to give it a stir and make sure you don't have any type of smoking or overheating going on. So I'll bring you back when the soap is completely melted down. Okay, so this half of the melt and pour is completely melted down. So the next step here is to go ahead and add in we're going to do the buttermilk and the titanium dioxide first. I'm just going to go ahead and add that in. And then to this, I'm going to be adding also in the fragrance oil and giving it a nice stir. Actually want this to be a little bit more opaque, so I'm going to be adding in a tiny bit more of the titanium dioxide. Just to make this a little bit more opaque white. There we go. So we should see this soap start to turn a little bit more. There we go. And I just love this fragrance. I'm going to add a little bit in here just to kind of pull up the rest of that white. And get it mixed in. There we go. Okay. So now we're ready to go ahead and pour this half into my soap mold. Now I am using a 5-pound soap mold from Brambleberry. I've got a silicone liner in it. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and spritz down the inside of the soap mold with some 99% rubbing alcohol. This will help with surface tension and it'll help get the soap spread all the way around the mold evenly. And then I'm spritzing the top also of my melt and pour soap just to pop any bubbles. And then we're just going to go ahead and pour it directly into the whole 40 ounces directly into the soap mold. And this is going to be the half that has the buttermilk in it. Such a nice skin-loving ingredient. Okay, so then I'm just going to take my rubbing alcohol and I'm just popping out the bubbles. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and start melting down the other half of this soap. So we're doing a kind of a layered look here, but it's not going to be even. In fact, I want this soap to kind of break through and give this a swirly look, a swirled effect in the soap. So we're going to go ahead and start melting this down now so that this isn't so set up that we don't get that swirled effect. And I'll bring you back when we are all melted down and ready to go. Okay, so the second half of my soap base is now all completely melted down, and what I do is I leave some of it unmelted so it doesn't get too hot, and I just, as most of it's melted down, I just keep stirring and stirring until all the chunks are melted into the soap. So the next part here we are going to do is add in the color and the colloidal oats as well as the fragrance. So for this half we're going to be using a combination of orange vibrance mica and cantaloupe mica, both from Nurture Soap. I want this to look just like a really nice peach color. I'm using about half a teaspoon or so, and then I'm going to put probably a 1/4 teaspoon or so of the cantaloupe color, and that's just going to tone down the orange a bit so it's not such a bright orange, and it'll give it a nice peachy color. So we're going to go ahead and just get that stirred in. And next thing we're going to do is go ahead and add in the colloidal oats. I'm gonna give this one more good stir just to make sure we grab up anything that's settled to the bottom. And then we're just gonna go ahead and pour the oats in. And then we're gonna go ahead and add in the fragrance, which again, this is 1 ounce of the gingered peach, and that's what we're adding into this half. Okay, and then I'm just gonna take a little bit of rubbing alcohol just to make sure all my little mica pieces and chunks are all distributed in. Okay, that's looking really, really good. So the next step here is to go ahead and get the mold back in place. And as you can see, the soap has started to form a little bit of a skin on top of it, which is perfect. We wanted to go ahead and get a little bit of a skin. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start poking random holes with a chopstick. I don't want the orange colored soap to sit on top of this layer. I want it to break through and give it a swirled kind of peaches and cream look. So I'm just taking my chopstick and I'm just poking random holes through the skin. And then the next thing I'm going to do is spritz this a little bit with rubbing alcohol, and then we're going to go ahead and start pouring this in. Now this is going to morph and make a different types of swirled patterns throughout. Each bar will look a little bit different, and it is going to look this way for a minute, and then we're going to start to see the swirls take shape. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and spray this, pop out these bubbles, and I'm going to take my chopstick again and just do the same thing. Just kind of poke random holes just to make sure we're getting some swirled action in here. So this is not something I took temperature on. It was kind of by the way it looked with regards to the thin skin forming on top of that white. Obviously if it gets too set up, you're not going to have that soap break through. So you want to make sure it's all kind of in the timing of how you get this in here. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. I'm just going to give this a good spritz. And then we're going to allow this to set up. This is going to take several hours to set up, and then we'll go ahead and slice this up, and I'll give you some different wrapping options for the upcoming holiday season. All right, I'll be right back for the next step. Okay, everybody, it's the next day, and we are ready to cut this soap. I did go ahead and cut a few slices with a wire cutter that's made specifically for melt and pour soap, and this is how the bars are coming out, super pretty. However, my wire just broke on that cutter, and I don't have any spare wire to replace it with at the moment. So we're going to go ahead and cut a few more slices here on camera with just a very sharp knife. I really prefer a cutter. I'm not a very good straight cutter, but we're going to do our best, and it's okay because it's a handmade product. And there you go. Let's take you over to the table and show you how you can wrap these. Okay, so we're getting ready to go ahead and wrap this soap. And the first thing I've done here is just wrap all the bars in some plastic cling wrap. And I love the Kirkland brand that you can get from Costco because it's thick, it doesn't tear easily. You barely have to use a heat gun to shrink wrap it. In fact, I haven't even done any shrinking on this at all yet. So you want to make sure with melt and pour soap that however you wrap it, the first step is to get it into something airtight, like a plastic wrap or a shrink wrap, because it does have a high glycerin content, and that means if it's exposed to the air, it's going to draw moisture to itself, and eventually it will develop little sweat beads, which makes the soap just really unattractive. And actually, if you just put this in paper or wax paper and you don't put plastic on it first, it damages your paper wrapping. So this is the best thing to do. Go ahead and wrap it in your cling wrap or your plastic wrap first. And then you could just leave it like this. In fact, that's what I do for the most part. And then on the back side, you can just put on a label that fits the back and covers up this part of your plastic wrap. Or if you have a shrink wrap machine, typically with cold processed soap, you don't have this part on the back. You just kind of have seams here. But anyway, you choose one side to go ahead and put your label on, and then you leave the front of the soap just covered in plastic like this, and people can see and smell the soap. However, I'm going to give you a couple different options for wrapping your soap today, just because it is fall and I know those craft fairs are coming up soon, and also gifting season is coming up soon, so you might want to see another way to wrap your handmade soap. So I'm going to go ahead and set these aside, and I have a tray here just full of my different wrapping goodies. I have different color string. I've tried to choose some papers that I thought went well with the colors of my soap. And I have a little bit of burlap wrap here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping. I'm not a very good paper wrapper, but I think the end product, looks good. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what that looks like. So I have this beautiful colored paper that comes on a roll. I think I just picked this up from Joann's. It comes on a roll and it's thick, tight paper, but I thought the colors looked nice with what I already chose for the soap. So we're just gonna go ahead and wrap it like a present first. So I'm gonna go ahead and place it down here, and then we'll get started. Okay, so this one is wrapped up, like a present, and then you could layer this with some decorative string. This is some black and white baker's string or twine, or this is another color twine I have, but I think what I'm gonna go ahead and do is use the black and white baker's twine, and I'll show you how to tie it. So I like to just put the face down, that's the side that's going to go on top. And then crisscross it this way. Flip it back over. And then you could make it into a bow. So this would be a cute, you could put a little oversized tag if you wanted on the bow itself. Just make a nice little bow, trim your edges, and there you go. Perfectly giftable, looks super attractive and cute, and then when people open it, they feel like they're opening up a gift from you, a little handmade gift. So that's one way to do it. And then I'm going to show you another option just with another type of paper here. So here's another one. This one looks a little bit more, I don't know, the colors on it remind me more of this time of year with the fall. So we can go ahead and wrap another bar up using this type of paper. Okay, and here's the second paper. I actually really like this paper. I think it's super attractive and looks really nice for this time of year. So then you can leave it just like this and put a label on the back if you like, or you can layer it again with another piece of twine, baker's twine. I'm actually going to show you what it looks like with a little bit of burlap around it. So this would be, you know, this is like a burlap ribbon that I have here. So it's got a little bit of a wire inside, which makes it real easy to wrap. So you're just gonna layer the burlap like this and just kind of push that wire into shape so it stays. I mean, your friends and family would be thrilled to get something like this. It's beautiful milk soap, all professionally wrapped. And so I'm putting a piece of tape here, but you could put a little soap label, a circular soap label right here to keep it closed, but just to give you an idea of what that looks like and how cute that is. And I think anyone would feel really special to get either one of these bars, these handmade soap bars, wrapped up beautifully, just like a gift. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. That concludes today's video. I hope it inspired you. I hope you learned something. If you did, please remember to give this video a thumbs up. Please share this video with a friend, leave a comment below, and subscribe to my channel. All right, catch you on the next video. Bye.